We'll give it a couple more seconds before we get started. Want to be able to have time to answer everyone's questions. I think we're here for an hour, so give it a couple more seconds, let some more people get in here, and then we'll get started. Okay, we'll get started. Thank y'all for joining us for this community roundtable on our superintendent search. As you know, in late July, Dr. Brian Johnson announced he was resigning to take another job in Chattanooga. And since then, the board has underwent a couple of changes with announcing that Dr. Towns would be our interim superintendent. And we have now went full force into a superintendent search, and we have 3 candidates left. We had 4, I guess, 2 weeks ago. The board voted to narrow the field from 5 to 4. Since then, Dr. Jim McIntyre out of Knoxville pulled his name from the application. So now we are down to 3, which is Dr. Christopher Benier. I always mess up his last name. But he's corrected me every single time. He is with the Clark County Schools in Nevada. He was with a school system down in Florida for about 20 years before moving out there. And then we have Dr. Dawson, who is with the Birmingham City Schools. And then we have Dr. Justin Robertson with Hamilton County Schools. So this is going to be pretty informal. Me and Tiffanie, sorry I didn't introduce Vice Chair Robertson here with me. And we're wanting to just hear from the community, get feedback on what you want to see in the next superintendent. Ask us some hard questions, some thoughtful questions as we move forward. And just to give you, before we do get started, a quick rundown. Starting next Monday and Tuesday, we'll have Dr. Bernier here. And then that Wednesday, Thursday, we'll have Dr. Dawson here. And then that next Monday and Tuesday, we'll have Dr. Robertson doing his process. We'll do about 4 school tours with each candidate. We'll go to a community town hall with the candidates. And then about 4 o'clock that day, we'll have a happy hour type meet and greet with the candidates prior to the board interviews at 5:30. So with that, Vice Chair Robinson, do you have anything to add before we get started?
I don't have much to add, except that I'm excited about the process and I'm looking forward to the questions that our community members have for us.
Awesome. So I believe, and I think we have Rachel and Chad here who will keep me in line on the technology aspect, but you can ask questions in the Q&A aspect down below. And that's how we can see your answers. We'll be also pulling some comments and questions from the live stream on YouTube as well. So I hope you'll be engaged, ask us some questions. We're here to hear from y'all and what y'all want to see in your next superintendent. So we do have some questions already. So I will get started and I will have to read them because I don't think with the Q&A other people can see them. So first question is, what was it about the final 3 candidates that set them apart from the other 3 candidates in the pool? I'll do this one. I'll give Ms. Robinson time to think on it. But so I think you have a wide variety of kind of experience. Of course, we have the internal candidate in Dr. Robinson, who has been a principal here, chief academic officer or schools officer, and now chief operations officer. So he's kind of done it all here locally. You have Dr. Bernier, who has been in 2 very large school districts and has a wealth of knowledge on how a larger school system runs and some of the efficiencies that he could bring here, as well as academic achievement. And then Dr. Dawson has an impressive track record of working in kind of urban school systems and how the academic turnaround in some of those school districts are impressive. So they all bring their own kind of highlight of expertise And I think that's what really kind of set them apart. Ms. Robinson, do you have anything?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that. I mean, for me, whenever we received our candidate list, and as we were asked to cull down the list, what really stood out to me and which was important to me was what are the size of the districts that these candidates are coming from. And so to me, what was important was finding someone who has an understanding of a district our size. For those of you that don't know, we have almost 47,000 students in Hamilton County, and the geographics, the socioeconomic landscape of our community is very unique, and it can also create challenges, but also can create some really amazing aspects to our education system. So that was one of the primary things that stood out to me. No doubt that Jim McIntyre, who was previously in the search and recently dropped out, as Chairman McClendon mentioned, has experience in a similar size district. But I know that Birmingham City Schools reflects a large part of what Hamilton County looks like. So there is certainly a parallel there for Dr. Dawson, and certainly Dr. Bernier has a similar school system as well. And then, of course, our home talent, Dr. Robertson, he knows Hamilton County, and he knows what our current strategic plan is, our vision, and how we have seen the school system shift and turn in the last 5 years, and has been a part of that work. So overall, I mean, I'm excited to meet these people in person and to have some one-on-one conversations. And I think we'll get a lot more of their pros and their cons from those one-on-one time.
I think when you start talking about school systems and whatnot, knowing how to run and how a large school system runs is very important. Me and Ms. Robinson were just at our Tennessee School Board Association meeting, and the parallels of a large school district versus a small school district, or even a medium school district, are very vast and different. You wouldn't think it would be that big of a difference, but there's a big difference. And so I think having that expertise, and I think all three of these candidates have worked long enough in a large school district to see how they work. So our next question, I had it. Let me pull it up here. Oh, do you believe a superintendent candidate should have classroom experience? Why or why not? Tiffanie, do you want to take that one first?
I knew it. I knew you'd toss it to me. I have to tell you, this is my second search for a superintendent for our school system. And if you'd asked me this question 5 years ago, my answer would be very different than what it is today. 5 years ago, I would have told you, no, it doesn't matter. And that, if the person has a strong enough leadership background and hopefully some business experience, that they can be a great candidate. What I've come to learn over the past 5 years of being on the school board is that actually classroom experience is very important, and it's all relative. I think that our superintendent understanding the work of our teachers and what's happening in the classroom, even though they are not spending their day-to-day in the classroom, but if they can really think on the level that our educators need to think at, or that level that they need to be on and think at on a day-to-day basis, it certainly will elevate the respect that they receive from their employees and the leadership ability that they're able to add to our district. So, I don't think that they necessarily have to have 20 years of experience in the classroom, but some form of classroom experience, I think, would go a long way. And Dr. Johnson's a great example of this. He was a high school teacher for a number of years, and then moved up throughout the administration of high schools, and then into the district in Clarksville, where he served as the chief academic officer. And so really serving in each of those roles, I think, can make a huge difference in the leadership ability of a superintendent.
Yeah, I think it's important to some degree. I think it depends on when that experience happened and how far they are removed from that experience. I don't think I think if you were in a classroom 20 years ago, 25 years ago, that's not the same as 10 years ago. And so it's something that I've looked at, as we've looked at these candidates, and I think that they each have some classroom experience and some school-based leadership. So if that's assistant principal or principal in their career, which I think is really valuable as they move into a larger role. And all these three candidates have moved into larger roles, being a chief of staff, a chief academics officer, and a chief operating officer. So we will go to our next question. If you have any questions and you're watching, you can use the, if you're in the Zoom, you can use the Q&A button to submit your questions, or if you are watching on YouTube, you can just type in the comments and we will get that brought over so we can see that on Zoom. What are your top qualities the board is looking for in a new superintendent? So I'll answer this as a personal statement. I can't speak for the board because this is something all 9 of us have to decide what's important. One of my most important things is how do we become a more effective and efficient district, which is something that Dr. Johnson kind of always preached, but I think it really is kind of broadens the scope of what we need to be. We need to be more efficient in how we run operations. We have $1 billion in deferred maintenance and a building plan that we have to get under control. We saw what we just went through with Tyner. This district can't afford to keep piecemealing our facilities together. We have buildings across this district and every district in every part of this county that needs some kind of work. And then we really need to continue and being efficient in our academics and making sure we keep pushing our academics. I think the board has celebrated the successes we've had, but I don't think anyone on the board will sit there and say that they're satisfied with where we are. We were with I think we had a conversation, and Tiffanie, I don't know if you were in this conversation, but we had a conversation with another board about where this district was in 2017. And they kind of joked, we all had nowhere else to go but up. And it really wasn't a joke, it was reality. This district in 2017 was at the bottom. And now we have become the fastest improving school district. And I think some people confuse that word improving. And so we know we are nowhere near where we need to be. And so I think we really have to use whoever our next leader is to propel us forward and keep us going, because we are at a pivotal moment where we can go backwards, or we can keep moving forwards. And I think that's one of the things that I'm really interested to see and talk to all 3 of these candidates to see how they propose that we move forward and we keep on this upward trajectory. Ms. Robinson, do you have anything?
Yeah, well, I mean, so much of what you said, I couldn't agree more with, you know, and to your point, we have everything at risk today, right? We have to make sure that our next leader knows how to keep us moving forward, because we can't afford to go backwards. I'd say the one thing from your list of items that I just want to add in, and I know it's important to you too, is work around equity and making sure that all students are, you know, receiving the education standard and the opportunities that we all want for students of Hamilton County. But the board has spent the last couple of years really diving into equity work and just really making sure that, you know, our students that are that have special needs, our English language learners, our socioeconomically challenged students, that they are just, you know, starting out the same platform. So that'll be very important to me as well. But again, it comes back to how do we keep moving forward and up? And how do we make sure that we don't regress backwards? But ultimately, the board has laid out a great vision and a great strategic plan up to 2023. This next leader is going to have the opportunity to go rebuild that plan past 2023. And so I'm excited to meet these individuals, because I want to know who's our innovative thinker and who's our thinker that's willing to push the limits to take us to home base past 2023.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that we still have Future Ready 2023, and that Future Ready plan, that strategic plan has pushed us to where we are today. And I think it's important that a new leader comes in and builds upon that and continues towards those goals that are in there, but also has the ability to look forward past 2023. And what does our next strategic plan look like? What do our new goals look like? How do we keep pushing ourselves? So I think that's a great point, and how what we're looking for as, I know me personally, what I'm looking for in the next superintendent. So this is one that I've gotten a lot. It's not necessarily about the candidates, but do you believe the search process that was decided upon is the best process for us to find the right person for the superintendent role? If yes, why? I fully have supported this search and the process that we've laid out. One thing that the board did And I think because they had to was they had to go do a traditional normal search last time. We really I can't speak, and I'll let Tiffanie, because I believe you were on the board at that point in time. And so I thought we were kind of in a different place. Also, I think that board at the time spent around $60,000, and we've heard from the community, or I have heard from the community, that was something the community did not want to do again, was spend $60,000 on a search. So I've heard a couple of times being out in the community at events that y'all are spending, a bunch of money again. I'm crossing my fingers. We'll know soon. But I think this search is going to cost under $15,000. Something that's been really important to me is keeping this as low cost as possible, but doing a high quality search. And I think when y'all saw, and when we met with Ken Carrick, he pretty much said, like, this is a good candidate pool. This is what we would have done, if I was doing this search. I think the timing is the most difficult aspect, is we're hiring someone in a non-traditional time. Most of the superintendents are hired into the spring and summer. But the board, and I know our staff, our communication staff, and everyone, from getting hotel rooms donated to getting a free event space and all that kind of stuff, we're trying to make sure this is a really efficient search that's looking after taxpayer money, all while trying to get high quality candidates. And I think with these 3 candidates and the 4 before Dr. McIntyre dropped out, we did that. So Tiffanie, I'll let you speak to anything else. You have the unique perspective, as you've done this before. I haven't. So you've seen both ends of this.
Yeah. And Tucker knows this because we sit right next to each other on the board, but I was pretty vocal against the direction that we've gone with the search. I'm not overly unhappy with it, but I did want to at least take the search in a different direction. I wanted to have the search firm do more of the legwork, and really kind of take on that full search aspect, which would absolutely have costed more money, to Tucker's point. And I just look at it differently. I look at it as like that search money is going to give us an ROI that 5 years ago, it gave us a really strong ROI. We got really lucky with Dr. Johnson, even though we spent $60,000, but the ROI is there and, has been there. It's a gamble every time you spend money on a search firm. I also did not expect to be spending money on a search firm right now either, because I think we all thought that we're going to have our superintendent just a little bit longer. So I would have, if we could do it all over again, I would have, and I did. I voted for taking on a search firm that took on more of the work, but ultimately I think I'm happy with the candidates that we have. I'll know more over the next couple of weeks. So I think that we're going to end up in a good place. But this is just one of those things where I didn't get to have my cake and eat it too. So that happens in politics. So we're okay. We move on.
It does. We never get our way fully when we're on the board, but that's the beauty of it. And once the board votes in a certain way, we all 9 support it and keep moving forward. So we have our first question from YouTube. It's a fairly straightforward one. Will the search firm receive its compensation from Hamilton County during the 2021 calendar year or the 2022 calendar year? They've already got their compensation. They've already been paid. I think we paid them $12,000, $2,000 per candidate, which was 5 candidates, plus a $2,000 kind of consultant fee, or whatever you want to say. I can't speak tonight. So we've already paid them for that, but that was $12,000 to that firm. And so they've done, after we met with Ken Carrick at the board meeting, I have not talked to him since, and he's done nothing else. It's been our wonderful board secretary, Sherry Ford. It's been our communications department, Dr. Towns's team, and the board picking up the legwork and doing it, and the community. Like I said, we've had hotel rooms donated, we've had event space donated, and so it's really kind of been a community coming together to make this a great search for without the cost to it. Let's see if we have any questions on here. Yep, got a couple more. What will the transition process look like when the new superintendent comes into their roles? Tiffanie, I'll let you handle this one because you've been through a transition. I really haven't yet.
Yeah. It's a good question. It typically, would entail the interim superintendent transitioning and helping the new superintendent, transition into their new role. With Dr. Kelly 5 years ago, it was about a 90 to 120 day transition period. And Dr. Kelly stayed on as a consultant. And I think he did a great job transitioning Dr. Johnson. I remember there being a lot of time on the front end with Dr. Johnson getting to know various entities throughout the community that do work with the school system. So thinking about like PEF, Chattanooga 2.0, the various organizations that are just very involved in our schools. I remember as the school board member for Howard High School, Dr. Johnson would even come and eat breakfast with the Howard alumni group that meets every Saturday at Wally's on Macaulay Avenue. And so he came and joined me just so that he can understand the perspectives that the alumni of Howard High School have about Howard. And so, really it looks like it's a very intense like sprint to becoming immersed and established in the school system, spending time in all the schools. We're in a unique situation though. We have an interim superintendent who, her timeline may not line up the way that Dr. Kelly's lined up. We also do not currently have a COO. Is that correct? Right now, our COO position is open. And so there are some key positions that ideally the new superintendent would have to lean on to transition them. And unfortunately, those positions are vacant. I mean, even our chief of staff position may not be, our person that's our current chief of staff will not be there whenever this person takes place. So the board is going to have to roll up its sleeves and help fill the gaps. And truthfully, I don't think that we've really thought through this question until now. And so I'm glad that somebody asked, because this transition period could be pretty critical, and we may, as a board, need to step in.
Yeah, I think the board is, we've started to have these conversations as it's gotten closer and as we get closer to making a decision. I think the board will have time for one-on-ones with these candidates when they come to town, and then we'll have the full interview. And I think it's something that I hope to ask these candidates is like, what does a transition look like? What is your plan for a transition? In a great world, they would come and say, hey, I've got a 100-day plan for this transition, or what I want to do. And I think Dr. Johnson, from what I can remember, laid out kind of a playbook on that, is getting involved, going to schools. I know Dr. Towns and I right now are doing community roundtables in our schools with our staff. And that's something I think a new superintendent can do. So I think from a community standpoint, we have the board that's willing to do it. We have a great communication staff. I hope that new superintendent, whoever it is, has the vision to do that as well. As far as everyday kind of operations, it's going to be a challenge. As Tiffany said, our Chief Operating Officer was Dr. Justin Robertson. He's now Deputy Superintendent and doing that same role at the same time. Miss Jennifer Bronson just got announced to be the Executive Director for Chattanooga 2.0, which is great, but we have some holes that need to be filled in our administration, and whoever it is going to have to work pretty quickly to backfill those positions as we move forward. That's a great question. That's something, getting into the details, but very forward thinking as we move forward. Trying to see if we have another question, anything on YouTube. Gotcha. This is a good one. The superintendent search is just part of having a superintendent. It's part of the board's kind of everyday thing. How will the board work towards retaining the new superintendent? So we're getting a couple steps ahead and whatnot, but I think it's a good question. I think after what we just went through with our last superintendent, Dr. Johnson, it's something that's in the back of the board's mind. So I think that's a great question. Tiffany, do you want to try to tackle that one, or you want me to first?
If you've got ideas, by all means.
Yeah, I think we have to, we have to want to retain them. We have to see results. So I think that's one thing. Dr. Highlander in the prior board, I think to my knowledge, they were the first board ever to put performance related targets in his contract. So he was rewarded with more compensation if we hit those targets. So I think that's something that we're going to do, not only just to retain with more compensation, but as a way that we move forward to make sure we're getting some accountability on that end as well. I think superintendency is a very hard job. I think on average, large school systems have like kind of a lifespan of 4 to 5 years, and that's right where Dr. Johnson was. So retaining them will always be part of the process and the thinking of the board. We gave Dr. Johnson a contract extension and a raise about 6 to 8 months before he departed, maybe a little longer than that. But we did that with the hopes to retain him, and we couldn't do that. That didn't work, as we all know. So it's something the board will have to look forward to and keep thinking, and just making sure there's always open communication from the superintendent to the board. I think a board and superintendent relationship is one of the most critical things for the operational success of the district. Tiffanie, anything else to that?
Yeah. I mean, I think you hit it on the head. I agree with everything you said, and I think it's important to remember that we need community support in this too. Public education is probably harder today than it's ever been, and community support, people rallying behind our schools and rallying behind our superintendent goes a long way. And so everything Tucker said is accurate, especially the board and the superintendent relationship. But in a tough job, there's only so much that we can do. But keeping in mind that supporting this individual and remembering that they're a human too in a very hard position, I think makes all the difference. And I look to the community for that support for this person.
We had, I guess, this question from YouTube. Does anyone audit those aforementioned targets? I think you're talking about the targets that are in the contract. Those are just state targets or state data that we get from the state. So I can't exactly remember which ones were in Dr. Johnson's contract. I don't know if you do, Tiffanie, but I know he hit 3 or 4 of them.
Yeah. And as far as audited goes, I mean, basically it's the data that's rolled out every year. So I mean, it would be impossible to not recognize it or pay attention to it, because it's really the target goals that the board is shooting for every year.
Yeah. Any other questions? Missed a couple here. This is from YouTube, will you be inquiring with these applicants their beliefs of basic appropriate education, parental involvement, given the recent issues that we have all discussed, I guess we've all discussed. So yeah, I think that's part of the interview process that we'll be asking them. Board members will have the opportunity to ask these applicants on their one-on-one meetings. And then parents, community members, like I said, we'll have a meet and greet. I think they all 3 start at 4 o'clock and they'll go till about 5:20, about 10 minutes before the interview. So I encourage all of our parents, our teachers, community members, grandparents, aunts, uncles to come to the boardroom, meet with the candidates, ask them your own questions. We won't be able to ask every single question, but I have no doubt that recent topics that have become before the board will be discussed with these applicants, either with the board members one-on-ones, the public interviews, or definitely during the town hall or the meet and greet prior to the interviews. Anything to add to that, Tiffanie?
No, that was great.
Gotcha. Kind of staying with that focus, our previous superintendent and interim have elevated parent voice and input in our schools and district improvement areas. Explain how this will be considered in choosing the superintendent to maintain this focus. I think we've seen this district in the last 4 years be a lot more open, a lot more transparent. It communicates with parents. I was someone that went through Hamilton County Schools all 12 of my years, or 13 of my years. And I know with talking to my mom and telling her some of the stuff we've done, she's like, y'all never did that when you were in school. I had to go fight and call the school and do this. So, I mean, our newsletters, our town halls like this, different things that we've done. I mean, Dr. Johnson was, he was everywhere, during his tenure, and doing town halls with community members or teachers or even students. So it was a great thing that they have elevated, and it's something that I hope to see continued, and will be one thing that I will ask the candidates about on what is your experience, and what have you done to increase parental involvement in your schools and community involvement, and then how do you think you can harness that here to move us forward?
Yeah, and I would just say that, it was very innovative how Dr. Johnson made parent voice and the community such a prime target, or a prime part of the overall strategic plan, and how he moved the district forward. And I will say that I think a great leader, a great superintendent, is also going to do the same. So it's going to be hard for us to, I think, not want these things that we've already had. And especially like now that we're all like making a shift, like in the midst of COVID, and we're starting to be able, we're now opening the schools back up. Parents can come into the schools. I mean, it's just the standard that's expected. And now I think that we value it even more than we ever have before, because of 2020 and then most of 2021 not being able to do things in our student schools. So it's definitely something that's important to me.
Yeah, I think just to kind of echo that, one thing, I guess my time on the board, it's just been the expectation. And so when I was lucky enough to be named chair, that's one thing that I told Dr. Towns was, hey, we need to get back into our schools and do these roundtables and listen. And we've had probably every single one of them. We've had some with 10, some with 20 or 30 or 40 teachers come out, and, they get to tell us what's going right, what's going wrong, questions. And so I think that's something that the board has really championed, and I think the next superintendent will have to champion that as well. Another question from YouTube: when will these meet and greets be happening? So they will be happening on the day that the candidates are in town. Off the top of my head, I think it's the 1st, the 3rd, and the 7th, and they'll be at 4:00 at the board meetings. Tiffanie is shaking her head on me.
The 29th. November 29th, the 3rd, and the 7th.
Gotcha. And it's all on our website. If you need to look at it, you can go to the Hamilton County Schools website. There's a tab for the superintendent search. And if I don't have my dates exactly right, the dates on there are right. So you'll be able to see those, and hopefully everyone will come out to those meet and greets, as will be a great opportunity to get some one-on-one time with the candidates. Another question: Dr. Johnson was able to build great relationship with board members and county commissioners. What kind of questions will you ask to ensure that our next superintendent has the same skill set? So yeah, as far as what exact questions, I'm not sure. I think it will be on, what is your experience with a funding body? I'm not sure exactly how funding bodies work in Georgia or in Florida, Alabama, and Nevada, where these candidates have vast experience, in Georgia, Florida, Alabama, and Nevada, I should say. And then, of course, Dr. Robertson knows how we work. So seeing what their other systems kind of operate like, and how and who are their funding bodies, will be interesting in asking them how they've dealt with them. Just seeing what their experience is on it, and how they've been able to move stuff through funding bodies will be interesting to see from them. We did have someone put in the chat the website for the superintendent search, and I think they did that on both YouTube and on the chat in here. So we have any other questions on here from on Zoom or on YouTube? We'll be able to grab those real quick. I don't think I mentioned Any more? So yeah, how do y'all hope a new superintendent addresses the need for our district to hire more teachers? How do you hope that they address the overall need for teacher pay and working conditions to be improved on? Tiffanie, I'll let you handle that one first.
Okay, but I missed the last part of the question you cut out. Ask me the last part real quick.
Yeah, so how do we hope a new superintendent addresses the need to hire more teachers? And then also, how do we hope that they address the overall teacher pay and working conditions?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that having a superintendent that is pro teachers and again, understand what it's like to be a teacher. Again, goes back to the question earlier about how important is it to you that they have classroom experience. Much like Tucker, it doesn't matter to me really maybe when they were a teacher, but as to me, it's like if you understand what it's like to be the boots on the ground, in theory, that could be good enough for me. But I think that truthfully, I think that Hamilton County Schools has started, has really moved in the right direction when it comes to teacher retention. Not only teacher pay, or we've elevated it, we've moved it up. It's not where it needs to be, in my opinion, but from the HR and benefits side, from mentorship and professional development, I believe that we have really created a great package in Hamilton County Schools. I think that we are doing a much better job of getting out there and recruiting, but perhaps that's the area where we could really elevate and just do more of. So I think in a lot of ways, like if we could continue doing more of what we have been doing and just, again, continue the path that we already started when it comes to making teacher recruitment a centered focus. I think, again, the superintendent's got to be willing to pick up the ball where it's been left off. I will say that one thing that I've been vocal about in the past and over the next 3 years as I finish out my term, I plan to be more and more vocal of, but I really do believe that maternity leave policies for teachers are antiquated. And I believe that we really need to elevate our working parents who are teachers and who need that time off to be with their children or their newborn child or their adopted child. And so I really do believe that if the district can start thinking about these antiquated policies that it has in place, that impact maternity leave and FMLA and disability leave, I really think that it could be a game changer for recruiting teachers. But I think that there are some policies like that we need to really laser in on. And I'm hoping that our new superintendent will have that experience to understand the need and why that's so important and will be willing to have the courage to make those changes.
Yeah, just to echo that, our HR department and Penny Murray have done an outstanding job in retaining teachers. I think we opened school in August with 98 positions or 98% of our positions filled, which is incredible. And so just a testament to having good leadership to make sure we're pushing ourselves to do that, thinking outside of the box, with our Grow Your Own program and elevating our teacher assistants and whatnot to become full classroom teachers is something that has really helped in expanding on that and pushing forward with that. So I think it's something that's personal to me. My fiance is a first-year teacher, so I've seen this year what the trials and tribulations of being a teacher are. And so I think it's important that we keep continuing to push and trying to make it better for our teachers, whether that is with pay or if it's stuff like our new dental insurance, which is a big thing for our teachers, our health clinics, our pharmacy, that kind of stuff. We have to keep up with the 21st century and how do we package ourselves to be attractive for future teachers. Another one from YouTube. Could you provide a brief breakdown of what the requirements are for the new superintendent position? I'm going to cheat a minute. If you go to our superintendent search website tab under the website, it brings the whole job description is posted there. So you can look through that. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. As you get the point, there's 12 or 13 different requirements the board put in there to make sure that they were, we were finding high quality candidates. So there was a lot of thought and process that went through this job description. The board voted on it. And it's something that was a team effort in putting together as we move forward in the early start stages of the search. Another one from Angela: what considerations will the board make in choosing a superintendent who can maneuver us through the continuing pandemic? I think everyone this last year and a half, I'll knock on wood that I think we're coming out of it and whatnot, but I think it is no question about it that Hamilton County led Tennessee. And I'll say and have said, I think we probably led the nation in some aspects in keeping our schools open. I think the statistic is we were in school 92% of the time last year, all while doing things like our Ed Connect, where we got free internet for 10 years for 15,000 or currently 15,000 students and counting every day, making sure we're full one-to-one in our schools. And so we've been recognized nationally from that. And I think all three of these candidates, in my brief conversations with them, acknowledge that. And so it'll be interesting to see what they bring the board and how they answer questions around COVID and how they maneuvered it and how they see us continuing to maneuver it as we move forward. Anything on that, Tiffanie, that you want to add?
Yeah, not too much. I mean, I couldn't agree more about the success that I believe that we had in 2020 and in the first half of 2021 and keeping kids in school, but also the innovative online program that we created in the midst of crunch time. And so, you know, Hamilton County is blessed to have had the leadership that it's had. I think that as far as this next leader guiding us through it, I think that the good news is that not only was Dr. Johnson talented, but so many other staff members that he put on the team are strong leaders, and they have a great head on their shoulders, and they are the ones who really pulled together this work. The COVID task force was a big part in that, and those people are still here. They're still involved, and they're still going to be engaged, hopefully with the new superintendent. And so, I think that the reality is that there are a lot of people around this new superintendent that are going to really help guide the decision-making, especially the board. And that's really important to remember, that the board wants nothing more than to see kids in school and staying healthy and safe. So, these, so again, just as far as how do we make sure the new superintendent stays on point with the effects of COVID. I mean, I think he or she, well, we only have male candidates, but he will have enough people surrounding him that are going to be helping guide that decision.
Yeah, we, our district leadership and contributed to Dr. Johnson for putting great people in his administration, really knock it out of the park every single day, from our chief of schools to HR, as I mentioned, to our community superintendents. They're just great people that do great work every day and help us achieve what goals that we've had. So I think I have ran through all the questions in here. So I will give just a couple more minutes for anyone for second questions that want to come through the Zoom or YouTube. But while I'll do that, I will just give you another rundown like I did at the beginning of the Zoom on what are the next steps. So the week after Thanksgiving, we have Dr. Bernier and Dr. Dawson coming to town. Dr. Bernier will come on Monday, Tuesday. Dr. Dawson will be Wednesday, Thursday. And so we'll have everything with them public. It's on our website, I believe their kind of day of schedule. It will start the Monday, or what would be their Monday their first day, Monday or Wednesday, with one-on-one board meetings, or I cannot speak, meetings with the board. And we'll do that. Then the next, their second day, which would be Tuesday and Thursday, they'll go on a school tour of about 4 or 5 different schools across the district, getting from everywhere, every aspect of our district, from magnet schools to our rural to our urban. And then we'll have a community roundtable with some people that are partners in education from the district and from the county. And then we will go into a meet and greet that will start at 4 o'clock on those days at the boardroom. And then we will go into the board interviews and stuff. So that will be that. I see one on YouTube. Is the final list / pool of candidates a diverse group of guys? I think it is. I think we have a diverse group of backgrounds. We have a diverse group in their experience. And so I think they'll come to town in a couple weeks. We'll get to meet them. We'll get to see what they're all about and hear their ideas on how they're going to move Hamilton County forward. Ms. Varner, if you do have a question, if you can type it. I don't have an ability to unmute you or let you speak, I don't believe. But if you have a question, I will be happy to get that and answer it on the chat. But other than that, I think we've done this search as well as we could have, given the circumstances that we were given. And what was thrown at the board during what is a very challenging time and what was a very challenging and still is opening to school. And so I think, this board has continued to be proactive and forward thinking. And I think that's what we'll continue to do. And we're excited to have these 3 candidates and see what they're about as they come to town. One more question, and then I'll see if Ms. Edna puts her question in the chat for us. What do you think are some of the most important community partnerships that you want our new superintendent to grow / continue? What are some of the partnerships that you want a new superintendent to explore that we don't currently have? Tiffanie, I'll be interested in your feedback on, especially on that second part on this. I'll let you handle that.
Okay, so I think I heard that right. So what are the current community partnerships that we need to continue and grow, and then the ones that we don't currently have, is that right?
Yes.
Whew, okay. So I think the ones that we currently have that we need to continue to grow, I think we have a great relationship with the chamber, who's been instrumental in helping us really get into the various business partners that we have, like UNM, TVA, UTC, Chattanooga State, et cetera. That have helped with our Future Ready Institutes. Those are incredibly important relationships, and I know that those will need to be heavily maintained, and those relationships continue to be built because we've seen great progress because of those partnerships. PEF has been a long time partner, and I think even that partnership have shifted over the last handful of years of Dr. Johnson in his seat because of the new initiatives that the district has taken on, and how PEF has kind of shifted their role, especially around teacher recruitment. And I think that's an important relationship to continue. Chattanooga 2.0, I think that there could be probably a bigger emphasis on that relationship. And I'm interested to see where the organization goes now that it's also under new leadership. But as far as new partnerships and new relationships, I think that neighborhood associations could be a very important segment to really focus on, and that the school system could really benefit so much from getting to know community or neighborhood associations. And I know that that's a very grassroots approach, but I do wonder how the student landscape and how our general community landscape would look, how different it would look if we found a way to really integrate into our community and our neighborhood associations of the school district.
Yeah, I think all those that you mentioned are vitally important to this school district and how we move forward. I think of community engagement and community groups as our business community too. So I think we've seen our partnerships with Blue Cross and Bryan College and UTC and Chat State and all of our Future Ready Institutes that we've established over the last 3 years. I think, personally, I think one thing that we're missing out on is the booming logistics sector here in Chattanooga, and how do we leverage those relationships with those partners and move that forward. That's something that is growing every single day, probably tenfold here in Chattanooga. And how do we really get partnerships with other businesses and get them to invest in our school? And so we are doing a pipeline for our schools or for our students in schools. And that's not a pipeline to college or even Chat State, but how do we get more trade schools? And we have the the trade school that's going to open up, downtown in the next years, which will help accelerate that. But how do we keep expanding in that? And how do we get 2 more of those to different parts of the city? And so that's kind of where I want to see them go is not only our community partners as neighborhood associations, PEF and 2.0, but really our broader business community and moving that forward and expanding opportunities for our students. Okay, I think that will do it. One last one is, once hired, how can teachers, parents, community members connect with the new superintendent to share our concerns or ideas? I can't necessarily answer that because I don't know exactly what they'll want to do, whoever it may be. But I would guess that there will be some Zoom meetings, some in-person meetings, some meet and greets, a little bit of everything. Whenever that starts, that new superintendent starts. So one thing I didn't mention, probably the most important detail, is that we do plan, as of right now, subject to change, depending on board and what they want to do. But December 9th is when we are expected to make a choice on the next superintendent. And I think going back to when we decided on like an RFP and whatnot, how are we going to, when are they going to start? I think January 1st is the kind of targeted date, which is a clean start period for them. But those 2 dates are probably important too that I missed out, December 9th and hopefully January 1st. So all good. Tiffany, do you have anything else before we leave? Are you good?
Nope. Yeah, I think
Awesome.
we covered it all. Yeah, we covered a lot of ground tonight.
We did. We covered a lot of ground. I think all of y'all that have joined on the Zoom, on YouTube, moving forward, if you have any other concerns, there's a form on the or concerns or questions. There's a form on the superintendent search tab on the website that has a form that you can fill out that the board will get, or you can find all your board members' emails listed on the website too, and you're more than welcome to, of course, email us. So now my dog is now playing in the background. You can probably hear him. He's like, it's time to go. So thank y'all all for joining us, and I hope y'all have a great night. Thanks.